Hey guys, my name is Ricky. I'm a flight instructor, commercial pilot, entrepreneur, and your host of the Positive Rate Aviation podcast. Welcome to season 2. This season, we're going to continue our climb into the art of leadership, growth, and success through the lens of aviation. We're going beyond the basics. We're going to be exploring new horizons in personal development, mindset, and the strategies that help performers stay above the turbulence. From cockpit wisdom to real-world leadership lessons, each episode is designed to help you level up, lead with purpose, and keep your life and career in a positive rate of climb. So buckle up. It's time to set your heading, add some power, continue your ascent towards your full potential.
Yeah.
So if you would, I'd like to maybe transition a little bit. And I don't even think we mentioned this in the beginning. But let's kind of get into your authorship a little bit,
Sure.
if we could, if you wouldn't mind.
I'd love to.
So we didn't mention it early on, but Mark has he's written a book, and he's been involved in editing some other projects, and I'd like to get into that, if as much as you would like to and feel comfortable doing. But the question,
Man, I'm all about promoting my book. I'll tell you as much as you want.
yeah,
It's your aviation podcast, man.
yeah. So because I'm real big, and I think I told you this when we spoke last week. Obviously, aviation is kind of the foundation for it all. But I'm real big on everything: family, business, and ventures even outside of aviation, right? And I get to do cool things like this, like speak to people like you. So, but with that, what is it that inspired you to start reading, or to start writing?
Okay. Now, this actually, it has a deep tie to the aviation industry. Something you and I actually, we talked a little bit about this in the pre-show, and I said, hey, we got to talk about this on. So here's the entree to that. You mentioned the airline industry is cyclical. And something I warned all my first officers about: every 10 years, you're going to get kicked in the teeth. Something's going to happen that is going to cause great trauma in the airline industry. Early on it was SARS, and then there was the United bankruptcy, and then we all know about the COVID pandemic. So about every 10 years, there was some sort of a crisis that caused an emergency at the airline. And with the potential of furloughs, pay cuts, everybody went backwards in pay and all that kind of stuff because the company simply had to save money. Bankruptcy at United after 9/11, 2002. 9/11 was 2001, obviously. 2002, United led the industry into the longest, most expensive, and United was the longest of them all, longest and most expensive bankruptcy in the history of aviation.
Wow.
And so a lot of guys got furloughed, and a lot of everybody else who stayed on the property took massive pay cuts. The average pay cut of guys that stayed on the property was 50%. Now, airline pilots are well compensated, but I don't care who you are. If you're used to living on a certain level of income, you take a 50% pay cut, that's going to hurt.
Absolutely.
So it was a horrific time in my generation's career. Bankruptcies, divorces, suicides went way above the national average among pilots. So we would go fly, those of us who stayed on the property, and we get airborne up to 35,000 feet. Everything settles down. The flight attendants are doing the dinner service or whatever. We've got all our stuff done, autopilot's on, and we kick back. And one of the first conversations we would always have is, hey, how are you? Are you making it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to get to keep your house? Going to keep your car? Going to keep your spouse? How are you? And, that generally sparked, yeah, man, this is going on and that's going on. And, one thing and another. So we'd swap ideas. And if the guy says, yeah, I'm doing okay. Well, the next question is how? I mean, every pilot I knew tried to create a side hustle. I got my real estate license. How many pilots got real estate licenses? Almost all of them. And joined the multi-level marketing, selling lotions and potions, trying to find some way to make an income to make the monthly house payment. Keep the kids in clothes and food on the table. And then one night, I'm flying from San Francisco in 777 to Frankfurt, Germany. Guy sitting next to me says, yeah, 6 months ago we lost the house, but I'm okay now. Well, yeah, how? Why? He said, well, I just got back from Hewlett Packard's annual meeting and they paid me $10,000 for a 1-hour speech, bought a whole bunch of my books, sent my kids to Disney World for 6 days. Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
It was a 3-day trip. We spent 3 days talking about what an author / speaker business looks like. And I'll tell you, that guy's still up. He's 10 years younger than me. And this was going on in 2007. I think we're having this flight. And so he's still with United. He's got another 8 years to go. He makes more money now. He's been working on this author speaker business this whole time. He makes more money now than he does as a senior captain at United Airlines, as an evaluator in the training center. He makes more money as a speaker, as an author in that business. So he's done very, very well. So he persuaded me to, over 3 days, to learn the writing, speaking business. And so I started writing. And, a few years later, here it is. It's all backwards now because of the camera, but
yeah,
that's my book. That's an award.
Yeah.
It was never one of these things where, people, everybody knows somebody's like, man, I want to write a book. I want to write a book. I want to write a book. That was never me. I had no aspiration, but I saw that as a potential. While United was trying to recover from bankruptcy, United could go out of business anytime, and I needed another way to earn an income. So that was the genesis of the book. And by the time I finished, United was long since out of bankruptcy. We exited bankruptcy in 2006. The book wasn't actually published until 2014. So, but because of the truism that every 10 years, something's going to happen, I knew there was going to be something else after the bankruptcy. Well, after the bankruptcy, the next thing that happened was the merger between United and Continental. Well, that was a big deal. And then a few years after that, of course, was SARS. We merged COVID. We merged in 2010. And then 10 years later, there's COVID in 2020, almost took United out. So I say that, even though we were out of bankruptcy, even though we had merged, I still kept working on the book. It ultimately came out. I'm very pleased with it. I'm proud as heck as I could be of this book. And that's where it came from. And that started another sideline for me. As you say, I've been involved in multiple other writing projects since. I've got another manuscript in the works. You want a heads up on what's in it? Go to my blog site. All those blog posts are going to be chapters in my next book. The blog site is the Symphony of Your Life blog, based on this.
Yeah.
symphonyofyourlifeblog.com. And there's some great, great stories in there. The next books are going to have 45 chapters. Each one of them is a story. Each story has a moral, based on things that I have seen over the course of my flying career. Most of them are flying oriented. Some of them are not. That's my next manuscript. Back in 2019, as you say, I got involved in a memoir for Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
Did you happen to take a look at that?
I did. No, I didn't. I wanted to kind of talk about that here.
Okay, so the story behind that is because of this, there's a community of writers, Colorado Independent Publishers Association. I got to know a bunch of other authors, became friends with some of them, and one of them was an old retired full bird colonel from the Vietnam War era. Got to know him and a couple other guys from a monthly luncheon that he holds called Cooper's Troopers. Every third Thursday, we get together for lunch. I've been doing it now since I met these guys in 2018. 2019, Colonel Fisher looks into the room. All veterans from all wars, the vast majority are Vietnam era vets, realizes these guys are kicking off. They're falling over and they're taking their stories with them to the grave. And he handpicked 10 guys out of that room and said, I want you to write your memories, what the Vietnam War meant to you. These are all guys that have been in combat. And he gave them a list of 10 questions that some of them used as writing prompts and just went down and answered, one at a time. Others just used them as sort of a framework and just did stream of consciousness. I got the equivalent of some shoe boxes of sticky notes. My job, they asked me, based on my writing, they asked me to take these stories and create a readable narrative. And I thought I knew something about the Vietnam War.
Not even close.
The things that I learned through that project would curl your hair. what these guys lived through. And then they came home, and, one of the hallmarks of the Vietnam War is, unlike World War II and the Korean War, where these soldiers were welcomed home as heroes, these guys coming from Vietnam, because of the political environment at the time, were treated like pariahs. They had done nothing wrong. They had answered the call of their country and gone and served well and honorably with courage. And many came back maimed. Some came back in boxes. And still they were vilified. So the stories in the book include actual combat stories, what it's really like to be in battle in a way I had never conceived of. I mean, you see the John Wayne movies from World War II, and then there are the Oliver Stone movies from the Vietnam War era. They just don't convey it. They try, just don't convey it. This book conveys it. And so there's that. And then there are the stories of the personal experiences, the guys who came back, and what they had to endure from their fellow citizens. I mean, there's a guy, I think it's chapter 3, a guy by the name of Bill Purcell. I think I put him number 3. I chose the sequence of those stories in the book. And by the way, I'm going to say this once and I'll say it again a couple of times because I want everybody to remember this. The title of the book is Echoes of Our War. Vietnam Veterans Reflect 50 Years Later. Yeah, if you can get a screenshot of that off of Amazon, put it in your show notes, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Echoes of Our War. Vietnam Veterans Reflect 50 Years Later. So Bill Purcell got blown up by a mortar during the battle for Hue, during the Tet Offensive. I'd heard of the Tet Offensive when I was a kid. I didn't know what it meant. Yeah, that's the New Year. They had a fight during the New Year. Okay. Well, there's so much more to it. And that was the turning point of the war, the Tet Offensive. And I got these blow by blow narratives. So Bill was an M60 machine gunner, and he talks about the first few days over there shooting the machine gun, trying to stay alive. And then they're walking house to house down this street in Hue City, trying to recapture it from the North Vietnamese. And he's standing in front of a storefront with a glass, window in the front. He sees a flash in front of him, and he thinks something's just blown up inside the store. No, that was a mortar blowing up about 15 feet behind him. Mm-hmm. Literally blew him up into the air. Wow. Within an inch of his life, they evacuated him out. And he tells the story of how he got taken back to the United States for recovery. And then he's finally released on liberty after many months of rehab. And he's in New York. That's where his home is. And he's going out of the hospital, limping out, with a cane, trying to just get down to Central Park for a rally that's going on down there. And they get down there and there's a protest. And there are guys down there waving the North Vietnamese flag. I won't tell you what Bill did. I'll let you get the book and read that story.
Yeah.
It that point is as funny as it is tragic. Can you imagine this guy got blown within an inch of his life, months of trying to recover from this being exploded. He still to this day carries shrapnel from that explosion. And then to be down there in Central Park, see these guys celebrating the North Vietnamese.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have happened after World War II.
No.
So that's another one of my writing projects. It was a great honor. And I know these guys, they're all personal friends of mine now. I go to their monthly luncheons. It's an awesome thing.
Yeah. It's, for anyone that's listening or watching this, if you never had the opportunity to be around some Vietnam veterans, to just sit and actually really talk to these guys and kind of get their firsthand account of what it was really like, not what you may have read in a textbook or something. It'll really make you think about things differently. So, real quick, I just want to share kind of something from my experience in the Air Force. So I actually had an opportunity back in 2018 to go on a mission with an organization known as DPAA. That stands for Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency.
I know where you're going.
Yep. So I had the opportunity to go on a DPA mission out to Vietnam. So for anyone that's unfamiliar, their headquarters. Well, I guess technically the headquarters are in the in DC, but their field training facilities out in Hawaii. So they brought us out to Hawaii, kind of gave us some training. There's different specialties in each individual recovery team. You have what's called the recovery team, and being life support, we were the LSIs, the life support investigators. So my job was to go out working hand in hand with the photog and the archaeologists, and we were essentially digging and attempting to recover the remains of, fallen Vietnam soldiers, right? That and trying to repatriate them to get them repatriated, bring them home, and kind of give their families closure, if you will. And my whole point of even telling the story is, obviously being in Vietnam, that hits a little extra close to home, and being able to give some closure, at least to an extent, to some of these families was one of the most rewarding opportunities of my life.
So you were successful in recovering some remains.
So a few of our teams were. Some of the teams we recovered some equipment. So nonetheless, at least providing the confirmation that is where this soldier or this airman or this naval officer actually was. So
you were able to change their status.
Absolutely.
Based on finding equipment. Because it confirmed the loss of life.
Exactly.
Yeah. So many of those teams go over there following leads, and they come back empty-handed.
Yeah. And we,
thanks.
Yeah. So being where we were, had the opportunity through the linguist, of course, being able to speak to some of the elders in the villages that were, of course, young people, some of them were kids, while this was, actually going on live.
Right.
Getting a firsthand account of these people. Like, yeah, I think, so like, I won't say his name, but there was the guy there was a Navy pilot, that my specific team was assigned to recovery. Right. And I guess there was a big storm or something or another. And where he was originally buried after he was shot down, I guess he was washed up, and they had to move him after quite some time. So it was kind of a thing where, speaking again through the linguist, they were unsure. They're like, I think he was there, but then maybe we moved him here. But long story short, with our specific team, we did recover some of his flight equipment. So no kidding, like we ended up digging up his G suit. So, we were able to confirm, that was, where he was, and, able to provide that closure, like I said. But some of our sister teams, they actually, no kidding, were able to recover some remains. So yeah, the experience overall, it was eye opening to say the least. And, like I said, it just really resonated with me with hearing you talk about your experience speaking to these Vietnam veterans. So yeah, I encourage anyone, if they've got a, grandparent or uncle or someone that was, involved in that conflict, man, just give them some time. If they're still around, right? Sit down, talk to them, ask them questions. I encourage anyone to do that.
And you'll see people wearing you see people wearing the baseball caps,
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam veteran. Occasionally you see a World War II veteran, right? But you see somebody with a Vietnam veteran take the time to say, welcome, because they never got that.
No, they didn't.
Came back. And it'll make their world if you just say, thank you for your service, thank you for my freedom, and welcome
home. Yeah, I think I'm going to take that myself personally. I like that. Wow. So that was the memoir.
Yep.
And that was 2019, right?
Yep, it's on Amazon.
Okay, Amazon.
Yep, it's an orange cover with helicopters.
Okay.
The picture.
Gotcha.
I don't have one up here. They're all downstairs, right? I'd show it on the screen.
Yeah, okay. No, I definitely want to get that, I definitely want to get that graphic so we can add that. Okay. So, all right. So let's see here. So we talked about, and that was in your explanation of how you got into writing. I mean, that's as real as it gets, right? Got to put food on the table, thing.
Yeah. And the person that I am now, 66 years old, I'm the sum of every decision, every experience that I've had. And back then, and what that does is I lived through that. And during that time period of the United bankruptcy era, we called it was a good decade. It was the lost decade. There were times when at the end of the day, I had to take inventory and ask today, not tomorrow, certainly not next week, next month. I don't even know about next month, but today, do my kids have clothes on their back, food in their belly, and a roof over their heads? That was a time. And because I was able to get through that, and here I am all these years later, I look back and I think of all these things that I have. What that means is I have survived every single challenge that has come at me.
Yes.
And every one of those over all these years has given me a tool for my toolbox. And at 66 years of age, I don't know everything. There's a lot of things I don't know. There's a lot of things I do. There's a lot of tools that I have that I can go back to. And every one of your listeners, every one of your viewers here, Ricky, I would say the same thing to them. You have been through some stuff. And by virtue of the fact that you're looking at this podcast, that tells me that you have survived 100% of the challenges that you've had to face. And I would proffer that every one of them has given you a tool that you can carry forward to something else that's going to happen that you don't know about yet.
Yep. I like to, offer this to people. We talk about wins and losses in life, and a lot of young people now like to refer to that as taking an L. They'll be like, oh, I took an L in this situation, right? Meaning a loss. But I'm like, does that L necessarily have to mean loss, or can that mean lesson?
Learn.
Right. Yep.
Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor. Uh-huh.
You know who Conor McGregor is?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm about to say? It's about this thing. One of his philosophies, he's in the ring. He doesn't win every fight.
Right.
What he says is we win or we learn. Every fight, I either win it or I learn something. So yeah, you take an L, take a lesson. 100%, man. That's great.
So when we spoke last week, there's another thing. I think maybe I did mention this to you because I said I didn't remember who said it, but I was listening to something or another recently, and I really wish I could remember who said this so I could give them the credit. But nonetheless, talk about wins and losses. They said, inevitably there's ups and downs in life, and then we're going to go through tough times. But who am I to think that I'm above like going through tough times, right? And there's balance, there's great balance in the world. There's an old saying that says, every time a child is born, someone leaves the world. That's how the world is balanced out. So think about like today, if I received, the best news of my entire life today, simultaneously somewhere, this is someone's worst day. They received maybe the worst news of their life. But on the flip side of that, there's been days where, maybe I thought it was the worst day of my life and I received some horrible news about, a loved one, or, maybe something horrible happened at work or something like that. But that was also the day that some girl is being proposed to by the love of her life, or, a couple is, experiencing the birth of their first child. Moral of the story, when I didn't complain, and I when I was on top of the world, I didn't think about the people that was going through their tough times. So I'm not above taking those L's like I talked about. So as time goes on and through life, as I get older, I try to keep that in mind and just apply those lessons learned, not dwell on the fact that I was going through the tough time, but just look at it as an experience to learn. And like you said, add it to that toolkit to grow from.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like what you said there about the sense of balance. Something, I don't know if this will show up in the screen, but yeah. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
You see this?
Mm-hmm.
Like behind the lettering. See if I can get the glare off of it. It's around.
Yep, I see it. Yeah, I see it. Uh-huh.
You know what that's called?
Is that the yin, the yin yang? Yeah, the yin yang.
Yin and yang.
Yep.
Opposites. One's light, one's dark. One's got a light eye. One's got a dark eye. Always going around in a circle. Always going around in a circle. What goes around comes around. We live in a world of duality.
Absolutely.
Like you're talking about. Good things happen, bad things happen. The wheel of fortune turns. It's not about avoiding hard times. It's about how we respond. And, you're always learning, always finding new tools to carry into the next challenge. That's the theme of the book, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of leads me into, this next question, common themes in your writing that kind of reflect your career or personal philosophies, specifically the synchronicity, the serendipity, the importance of the things unseen. Can we talk about that a little bit?
100%. You got to ask me a question.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to give me something specific. That's absolutely one of my favorite stories for obvious reasons.
Right. Yep. So I had
for your listeners, what he's talking about is a blog post on my blog site. What was that blog site again? The Symphony of Your Life blog.
Oh, yep.
So go to that. And Ricky, what was the title again?
That was the synchronicity, serendipity, and the importance of things unseen.
That's right. So you can do a search on that blog site, and that article popped right up. And I think it's 4 sections.
It was
4 parts.
4 parts. Yep.
I didn't want the blogs to be too long, so I broke it up into 4. Now that's going to be, those 4 are going to be combined into one chapter.
Awesome.
So yeah, what do you want to ask about that, man? I love that story.
So I kind of I threw that, I attached that to this question. So the actual question was, with your writing style, does that reflect in any way, kind of the theme of your personal philosophy?
I think it must. And the overarching philosophy of all my writing, well, with the exception of the Echoes book, because that's somebody else's writing. If there's one thing to remember as a philosophy of life, it's stay in the process. Stay in the process. That one line carries so much gravity. And I've built entire workshops and 2-day seminars, and all about just around that idea. If you need clarity, people lose their jobs. They need clarity on what to do, or they have a change of life. They retire. What am I going to do? So I've spent some time thinking about that. And the idea is you figure out what you want to do, then you figure out how, and then you begin. And just, you can quit as much as you want, but just don't stop.
Yeah.
I'm quitting. Okay. Yeah. And then you get up the next morning and start over. Take another step, just one foot in front of the other, stay in the process. So part of that synchronicity, serendipity, and the importance of things unseen conveys that. It's not so direct, but the storyline that gives us the lesson is my son walking across northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago.
Mm.
If you've seen the movie The Way with Emilio Estevez and Michael Douglas,
I've never seen it.
I don't remember. Anyway, it's about that. It's a story about, I want to say Michael Douglas, but I know that's not true. It's not Michael Douglas, but Emilio Estevez.
What was the title? I'm sorry.
The Way.
The Way.
And the Camino de Santiago is it's a pilgrimage trail from the east border of Spain all the way to the west coast. And the idea is that's where the bones of St. James were taken from the Middle East across this Camino to Santiago, Spain. And there's a cathedral there where his bones are interred. And so for hundreds of years, I don't want to say thousands, because certainly not multiple thousands, but sometime in the Middle East, his bones were repatriated from the Middle East over to this cathedral, and it's become a pilgrimage.
Mm.
And it's so well known that they made this movie about it. And it's a fiction movie, and it's about the guy doing it in memory of somebody. The Way, and the people who are on the Camino know it as The Way. That's the way the title of the movie came.
Gotcha.
So my son, who was then like, I don't know, late teens, 18, 19 years old, just went off by himself, flew over to Paris and took the train down and started walking across the Pyrenees and spent 6 weeks walking 500 miles from one side of Spain to the other. So there were some remarkable things that happened on that hike. I'll tell a couple of them in that blog.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want me to tell the story, I will. You're in charge, but I can either leave it at that, or I can tell the story of the drum circle.
I think it might be beneficial to maybe tell that story, because just me reading that and kind of that bringing everything full circle in terms of what you were trying to convey, with things happening at the same exact time by a father and son. Yeah, I'll let, if you wouldn't mind.
I don't mind a bit, man. It's like I said, this is your podcast. And I know you can cut stuff, you can edit, you're going to do all of that stuff. Please. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes.
Please do.
So, I'll give you the setup. Seth's walking across Spain. So let's just leave Seth walking for a few minutes. And let's go back 20 years before that. I was the first officer on 737 and had a layover in New York. Had some time to kill on a Sunday afternoon. It's a weekend and Central Park's got stuff going on. So I'm over there walking around. I've been there for a little while and I hear this drumming in the distance. So, what's going on? Let's go over and see. It took me almost half an hour to walk across the park, get to it. I got there and there was this circle of hippies just pounding on these drums. And I'd never seen anything like this. I told you I grew up in a small town in central Georgia. We didn't have hippies beating on drums, when I was growing up. And I'd been in the military for a while. They didn't do that in the military. And I, they didn't do that, on an airplane. Hippies in a circle. There must have been a dozen of them. And there were people in the middle of the circle just dancing, dreadlocks, tattoos, all the things. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, this is cool. What is going on here? I don't know what's going on, but it's cool. And I just kind of left it at that because, like I said, I'd never seen it before. And I didn't know if, I would have loved to have jumped into that circle and, danced around a little bit, but I didn't know if there were rules. So and I had conventional clothes, and short hair. I didn't want to intrude on their party. So I just kind of watched for a little while. And, people would move in and dance and move on. And other people would come in, dance, and they'd move on down the park. People just come in and go. So it was a wonder to me. What was that all about? Well, next day I'm telling the captain about it at 35,000 feet. And he just says, well, before I got to the park, tell him, what it is. I said, well, did you dance? I didn't. I wish I had, but I just didn't know. Yeah, okay. So I left it at that. And I'd always kind of regretted not dancing. And I thought, if I ever have another chance, if I'm ever on a layover and I see a drum circle, boy, I'm jumping in. Well, 20 years later now I'm flying internationally. I'm on a 777 evening, and I'm going to go wander down to not Central Park now, but Hyde Park in London. Carole King has just finished wrapping up singing for part of her movie. She did the Carole King movie a few years ago. And it was her in concert. And she was singing. She finished singing while I'm walking past the amphitheater there on my way just across the park. And when the music stopped, it's dusk, it's sunset. I hear some drumming. What? Are you kidding me? I started walking right towards, and I found it, and they were the same people. Hippies, and dreadlocks, tattoos, smoking sage. Yeah. And I looked at them for a minute just to make sure, and I just stepped right in. Mm-hmm. Wearing my conventional clothes, my blue jeans, my t-shirt. I didn't dance long, just a few minutes. And I just kind of looked around to make sure that everybody else was smiling. Everybody's smiling, looking at me. Yeah. So I ticked that box, corrected a regret, and walked off. Okay, that's done. Feeling just walking on clouds, man. Walked across to my shawarma place, a place I get dinner. I get a shawarma. Ate my shawarma, went back to the hotel. I had to check on Seth. See what Seth's going. Now, this was several years ago. The internet was let's just put it this way. Wi-Fi was spotty in these little villages across northern Spain. So he'd check in every 2 or 3 days when he got a good Wi-Fi. And so I logged into the internet and went to WhatsApp, clicked on Seth. There was a message waiting for me. And it was one line. And I looked at the timestamp, and it happened to be the exact time that I'd been down, it was an hour and a half, 2 hours before when we were in that drum circle. One line said, I was just in a drum circle. My son in northern Spain came upon a drum circle same time I came on a drum circle in Hyde Park. We danced together, same time. Now, this is where that word synchronicity
Yep.
and serendipity provide us the opportunity. Synchronicity is the idea that two things that are related can happen without one causing the other. They can be related by meaning. That was a synchronous moment that my son and I had serendipitously walked up into a drum circle at the same time, hundreds of miles away from each other, not talking to each other, not knowing what was going on. So how in the world something like that happened? There was something between us that we couldn't see that brought us together in that moment. We had this shared experience, something unseen. So Seth continues across Spain and told me a story a couple of days later of one of his buddies, a guy who had met, was a heart doctor. And so they're walking across, and as this heart doctor happens upon a restaurant bar, Seth wasn't with him at the time. He got told about it. The guy's name is Vladimir. Walking by this restaurant bar, he sees a commotion inside, sticks his head in to look. The guy's having a heart attack. Saved his life, had him call an ambulance, and then went on his way. Did one cause the other? How was it that Vladimir happened to be walking by this bar, heart doctor, as somebody's having a heart attack? Serendipitous, synchronicity. Something unseen had pulled these two people together. One didn't cause the other. Was there meaning there? Oh yeah. Last part of the story. When I was a young lieutenant in Omaha, my duty station with the RC-135. I just moved there and moved into this house. It was a foreclosure, so it'd been beat up. The yard was bad. And so I started working on it. And as I started working on the yard, I noticed back along the back side of the house was a row of dog roses. And that summer they didn't bloom. And this is, I guess, summer of '87, I think it was. I mean, the yard was full of weeds and had mold trails and just all kinds of stuff. So I started, killing weeds and planting grass and getting rid of the moles and one thing and another. Well, but I left the dog roses alone. They went on a very long list of things we take care of. Same thing next summer. I kept working, and then summer of 1989 came along, and the yard was nice, but I still didn't get to the dog roses. Well, that fall, my father back in Georgia passed away. Now, my father had been an agronomist. He worked at the University of Georgia Agriculture Department. He was a weed control specialist. He wasn't involved in roses, but he loved roses. And we would go when I was a kid. We'd go just like a little kid goes to the airport and holds onto the chain link fence and watches the airplanes go by. Dad would take me to look at the roses, and we'd walk through the rows of roses at the display garden there at the experiment station. He loved his roses. We didn't have many of them at the house, but I knew he loved roses. So Dad passed away in the fall of 1989, and then winter came and went. And then next spring, the roses, I hadn't touched them. No cultivation, no fertilizer, no nothing. The only thing that had changed was that my dad, who had loved his roses, had passed into another realm. And I knew in my heart that those roses blooming was a message from my dad that it's okay, bud. All is well. We're good. Yeah. Now, my dad was in Griffin, Georgia. Those roses were in Omaha, Nebraska. Could Dad affect those roses while he was alive from Griffin, Georgia? No, they bloomed without him touching them, without me touching them, except that he was now in another place where he could do that kind of unseen. Was there meaning in those roses blooming? Yeah. All the difference in the world to me. And as I say in the article, that's when my moment of peace arrived. I'd been grieving since the fall. I continued to grieve. I still feel it to this day, all these years later. That was the moment when it changed. And I got that message from Dad. I'm certain. I know with a doubt in my mind that synchronicity was a message from my dad. Gave me peace. So, we have to ask ourselves. I mean, by the time you're your age, and certainly by the time I'm my age and at younger ages, we have all seen things that we can't explain with math and science. So what is it? I don't know. But we ask some questions at the end of that article, don't we?
Absolutely.
that being the case, how should we then live? And, we look into books, thoughtful books that have yin and yang on them, the Wheel of Fortune, and we talk about staying in the process and what these serendipitous, synchronous moments can teach us. That will be in my next book.
I think to your point, staying in the process, that keeps your focus sharp and eliminating those distractions might make it easier to recognize those serendipitous, synchronous,
100%.
Synchronicity, right?
100%. Stay focused on the things that are important. You figure out what you want to do, you figure out how, and then you step out and just keep walking. And, there are all kinds of motivational quotes about how once you commit, the universe puts into play forces that you cannot see that conspire to support you. And you'll see it when it happens. And it'll be like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Glad it's here.
Right.
Thank you for that. I don't know where it came from, but yeah, you manifested it. You did it by committing to the process and staying in the process and stepping out one foot in front of the other. And you make progress a little bit every day. And every time you work on it,
you get 1% better. I didn't have a clue what I was doing when I started a podcast. As an example, I had no idea. I just, I was led to do it. And I told you a little bit about that. And I enjoy conversation. I enjoy meeting people and learning from people. Truth be told, I really still don't know what I'm doing, but here I am, and we were able to have a great conversation. But an interesting.
You're doing great, buddy. This is what, episode 11, 12, something like that. And
this is 12.
12, yeah. And I've been on a few podcasts, sitting in this chair, doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah,
I've seen worse. Let me just say,
I appreciate that, and
I have seen worse.
Yeah, I just continue to, like you said, put one foot in front of the other, and I just won't quit. I read an interesting statistic real quick, as of like 2 years ago, but the average podcast that started today falls off after 8 episodes. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I've managed to somehow make it past that. So, and it's thanks to people, like you that, are willing to come on and do this.
It's fun for me. I don't want to take any credit for that. I've seen some of your other guests. It's like I said during our conversation last week. It's like, man, you got some good people on here. I'm the slow leak of the group.
No, you're right. You're right there with the rest. Trust me. This is awesome. But yeah, in the interest of not, of your time, I would like to continue to kind of move forward and wrap this up. I'm almost done. But just real quick,
I'm good on time, man. And I know we're at 2 hours now, but I know you're going to edit.
Yeah.
And so I'm not censoring myself.
Okay,
so
perfect.
I'll trust you to make it all look good, sound good, but I'm good on time.
Okay. That's great. And actually, I was thinking, cause this is actually my longest episode to date, but I'm okay with that. And kind of taking a page out of your book, this might actually get broken into like a part 1, part 2 type deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's beneficial because I didn't want to sell it short. The stories that you have, again, 66 years of life is going to come with some experiences. And, that's kind of what we're all about here at Positive Rate is, just trying to, as we say where I'm from, soak up as much game as possible. So,
there you go.
This is great. But, kind of going to the leadership thing. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Obviously, you spent a long time in a leadership position, but, what's the best leadership advice you've ever received or given?
Got it at a Toastmasters event.
Okay.
Got it at a Toastmasters event. When I first started to speak in business, I didn't know what I was doing. Every speaker I knew, I went and asked them for advice. And one common thing was they said, go to Toastmasters. Now I stayed for a little while, left. But one of my first ones, and do you know how Toastmasters works?
I'm not familiar.
Have you heard of Toastmasters?
No, sir.
So Toastmasters is a international club, and just this doesn't do them justice, but Toastmasters exists to give somebody who's never given a speech before in his life the ability to give a father of the bride speech, for example. Mm-hmm. A 2-minute speech, a 5-minute speech, 10-minute speech. And if you stay in long enough, then you can go on from there and learn keynotes and figure out how to do a 1-hour speech, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I'm going to this Toastmasters thing, and the one I went to was called Professional Presenters, and they were more focused on keynotes, which is what I needed. So I'm sitting there, and what I was going to say was the way it works is at the meeting, different people give us a speech, whether it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever. And then everyone else in the room does a round robin critique. So it goes from one person, he gives a 30-second critique, next person gives a 30-second critique around the room. Okay. So the guy gets to learn from all the people, with more experience, right? So that's the idea. Toastmasters, you go, you give a speech, and it's good or it's not good, but you learn from the people in the room. Okay, so that's the setup. So I'm sitting there watching. Sure enough, a guy gets up and gives a speech. One of the first critiques comes from a guy who had been a finalist in the Toastmasters World Championship. Now that tells you how big Toastmasters has become. They've got, I don't know, they may have millions of members, but every year they have a competition and they go all the way to a world championship from all over the world. Wow. And so this guy being a finalist, he stands up and he says this, your audience really won't care much about you until they know how much you care about them. Mm. You want a leadership principle? Yeah, you can go to John Maxwell. You can go to, this leadership guru. Your audience, i.e. your subordinates, won't care about you until they know how much you care about. 7 years as a captain, I took that with me, and I tried to apply that on every flight. And I had to create a team. It was what we call rapidly forming short duration teams. Every flight was a rapidly forming short duration team. We flew the mission, the team dissolved. Right? Short duration. And I had to rebuild it, sometimes 3 times a day. And my team, my target teammates, consisted of my CSRs, the gate agents, my flight attendants, my tug drivers, my baggage handlers, and my passengers. I wanted to create a team that brought them all together, unified them all to work towards a common goal. And my CSRs had one set of concerns. I had to let them know, as I walked up to the gate to start this process, I had to let my gate agent know, I know what your priorities are. I know what your constraints are. I know what your challenges are. And I got you. And from then, I went down the jet bridge to my flight attendants. And without saying the words again, I had the same thoughts in mind. I know where you just came from. I know where you're going to end up today. I know what's going to happen in between. I know who you're going to have to work with. I know what your constraints are. I know what your concerns are. And me, I'm the captain. I got you. Mm-hmm. And I could do that with my baggage handlers. I could do that with my tug driver. I could go out on the ramp and see the guy slinging the bags, stop him for a second, put my hand out and thank him for what he's doing out there in the cold in the middle of winter, in the springtime and a downpour. And I would have been the first guy ever to do that. Mm-hmm. And then I go back up the jet bridge, back out to the boarding area, and there's 179 passengers sitting there waiting to board. They have had to stand in line to check their baggage. The queue lines. And when you're down at Disney World and you're waiting for the ride, as you're going through this, you look up and there's these TVs with these cartoons singing and dancing, right? Mm-hmm. When you're going to check your bag, there's no cartoons. And from there, they go to the TSA, go through the lines. Again, no singing, no dancing, and they run into somebody who's kind of surly. He's not necessarily a pleasant experience. Then in Denver, they go down the escalator to the basement, get on the train, and some kid's backpack stops the doors. The train barks at him. You are delaying the departure of this train. And then, so by the time they get to me out there in the boarding area, 179 of my passengers, they've been through a day. They're exhausted. They're frustrated and tired. And can I do something about that? Yeah.
Certainly try.
Yeah. I can. So I pick up the microphone out there. This is my style. There are different ways of doing this, but I pick up the microphone. I look out there around the room and I say, I know what you had to do to get here. Thanks for doing it. We're going to have a good flight. I'll tell you why. I'm the captain. I got you.
Mm-hmm. Now, go ahead. Now you would do that. Now, is that something you would practice for every flight?
It wasn't possible for every flight.
Okay.
But for every flight that it was possible, I did.
Wow.
Every time. So I would say 90% of the flights that I operated, I did all of those things.
I can tell you for certain. And I do quite a bit of flying, with travel, in and out of the military. I've never seen that before.
That's not an uncommon story.
Yeah.
And, my wife and I, we travel space available quite a bit. She does more than I do. As a matter of fact, she's over in England right now while we're talking.
Okay.
And we laugh about it. Hey, did you see the captain today? No. Hey, did you see the captain? Yeah, he came out. And that happened whether there's a delay or not. She could be an hour delayed. It's nonstop from here, so it doesn't really matter. She's going to end up in Heathrow anyway, but she could be an hour delayed and never see the captain. Mm. And to my mind, that's unconscionable. But that's just my style. It's just me. But there are a lot of reasons to do that. But back to your original point, if I'm going to encapsulate my theory of leadership into one line, that's it. Your audience won't care much about you until they know how much you care about them.
Hmm. Yeah, very, very good. Good words of advice there. Wow. So I got one more thing for you before we kind of get to the kind of the closing segment here. But
yeah, man.
What do you miss most and least about being a United Airlines pilot?
There's a list. Those are two lists.
But if you could just give me the biggest, like.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing I miss is my passenger interactions, mm-hmm. because as you noted, it's unusual. What I did was unusual. And I always got a kick out of it, and it was so easy to do that in a meaningful way because the bar is so low.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
And I say the fact that the bar is low is it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a bad thing because from the passenger's perspective, there should be more of that. It would ease the journey. If more guys would do that kind of thing and take that kind of, the passenger experience would be better. But the fact that so few guys do that made it real easy for me to step over the bar. I didn't have to jump over the bar. I could just step over it because it's so low. Any little thing that I did was a novel experience, particularly for my frequent flyers, the business guys, the million milers. They do it all the time, and they. More often than not, when I came out there, it was the first time they'd ever seen it. And to see their response was just fun for me.
Yeah.
It was just fun.
Yeah.
So I miss that. And, I'll just say very briefly that on the list are my interactions with my first officers. I loved making them listen to me, mentoring them about my years on the so that interaction was always fun. Working with my flight attendants, easing the work for my flight attendants was always a joy. Same thing with my CSRs. I miss the people interactions. And I'm not a people person, so that tells you something. What do I not miss? There's always a bureaucracy, and there are always conflicting motivations. Some of those conflicting motivations were where I ran into friction. And there were other places where I didn't. I mean, having to go every 6 months to get poked and prodded by a doctor playing "You Bet Your Ticket," knowing that if he finds the wrong thing, I've just lost my job. That was an irritation. Going into the simulator every 9 months to prove once again that I can fly an airplane on one engine and I can handle it when the engine blows up. That was a necessary evil. And over the last years, it's gotten less and less unpleasant because the philosophy of training has changed. It's more of a focus on training than it used to be. Mm. But it always used to be you go into the simulator and again, you bet your ticket. If I stub my toe here, it could get ugly. So I don't have to deal with that anymore. Those bureaucratic things, the sky is getting crowded. It's absolutely safe, but the things we have to do to make that crowded sky safe, it's just harder work than it used to be. So, I don't miss that, and the increasing complexity of the industry requires a whole lot more effort for an old guy like me to stay current and competent.
Yeah.
At the new world. So I'm happy to leave it. Like I said at the very end of my video, I'm happy to leave it to some other guys.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm glad you spoke about the medical. That's big. For the young pilots, man, young guys out there, whether you're going up through the pipeline or you're just getting on at your regional, like, take care of yourself, man. Eat right, exercise, man, and control the things that you can control because that medical's everything. And I actually had to go redo my medical last month, and just my AME and I, we've actually got a pretty good relationship. I've been going to him for quite some time, but he's kind of giving me crap a little bit. He's like, "Hey, man, you're getting older now. He said you're going to need an EKG soon." Well,
yeah.
So
do your stretches, go out for walks, man.
Yeah, for sure. And, cause life happens, right? You have a couple of kids and you're working and, maybe you're not as active as you once were. So it kind of just brought it back to the forefront of my mind. Like, man, I got to take care of myself. I've spent way too much, time and money and everything thus far in my aviation journey to get to this point to lose it due to, medical, right?
Yeah.
That would be so unfortunate. So I really appreciate you saying that.
Every 6 months.
Yeah.
Every 6 months.
Yeah.
Used to be a little bit more spread apart, but now with United, every 737 pilot can be tasked with an international flight on any trip.
Wow.
To fly internationally, you got to have a first class medical, and have first class medical, you have to have an exam every 6 months.
Yep. Wow. That's that's valuable. Okay, so that's really the main things that I had for you today. So in closing, I just kind of like to have a little bit of fun. I call this segment "Clear for the Option."
Okay.
So
sounds interesting.
Right. So clear for the option. So just something to have a little bit of fun just before we depart. Just to kind of get your personal take on some things. It's almost like a rapid fire, but I'll just kind of throw something out there and you just kind of give me the first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
And then we'll get you out of here. So with that being said, you're cleared for the option. What's your favorite airplane?
That I've flown or that I see flying?
You know what? Both.
Okay. Favorite airplane that I flew was the 777.
Okay.
Favorite airplane I've enjoyed watching fly was the F-22 Raptors taking off out of Honolulu, watching them take off and show out.
Oh, yeah. I'm fortunate enough. I still get to see those guys take off every day. That's really cool.
There you go.
Yep. Okay. So military or civilian flying?
Only military. I've never done any civilian. Yeah. I actually, I had a great opportunity. About a year and a half ago, I met some guys that have a Stearman, and I got to go out and have a little 20-minute orientation ride in a Stearman, that was a bucket list item. I'd always wanted to do it. And just this past weekend, I went out with a friend of mine from another pilot fraternity who owns a Super Cub.
Okay.
And I've wanted to fly in a Super Cub for my entire life. I got 2 hours flying this thing. We went all over the place and did all kinds of fun things.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, but that's I've never learned how to fly civilian is much different than flying in the military. And I've just never learned it.
Right.
And I don't want to. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Favorite airport?
Ooh, favorite airport. That's changed over the years. There was a time when it was Eugene, Oregon. There was a time when it was Seoul, South Korea. What would be my favorite airport now? Caribbean. Am I going to say Aruba? That's a good one. Another one that was fun. These little tiny, small country down in Honduras, Roatan, a little airport just off the coast, a little island. A lot of fun, just fun going into Roatan. Just nothing special about it. But different airports for different reasons over time.
So, I know this is supposed to be rapid fire, but sorry,
I'm not going past.
No. This is on me. You're doing just fine, but I have to ask this question. So, with the favorite airport, is that more so like when you mentioned Aruba or Honduras? Is that because of the aesthetic? It's aesthetically pleasing on the approach, or is it just something with the airport itself that makes it your favorite?
Yes,
the aesthetic,
both,
all
those things. All those things.
Got you. Okay.
When you get down into countries and airports and cities that are smaller, like DIA, for instance, DIA is very, very well laid out. Everything makes sense. Everything is 90-degree turns. You land going this way, turn into the terminal, and you take off going this way, the other direction. It was from scratch. It started out with a plan.
Yeah.
And it operates very, very, very nicely. But you go to these places with old airports that were built decades ago on a rock in the middle of the water. Nobody's talking. It's not much traffic. It's just easy. And you see the island, and then you're coming in and you see the runway, and you just fly this visual approach and put it on the runway. And 30 seconds later, you're at the terminal, you set the brakes, and they bring up the air stairs.
Yeah.
So it's a different form of operation. It's a lot more fun for different reasons.
Got it. Okay.
So it's fun to go to those places.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of switch up from the norm a little bit. Okay. Your favorite overnight?
Definitely Aruba.
Aruba. Okay.
Yeah. Cause of where we stayed over, the little town there. I forget the name of the town. Very, very cool Dutch colony, classic old. I mean, very fun to walk around, and the food on that island was to die for. I had a restaurant that, and very expensive, by the way, I will say.
Okay.
Because everything has to be brought in, to the island. There was one restaurant down there that I absolutely loved. And I grew to love, Puerto Rico. We would go in San Juan, and that became a very fun place for the same reason. Good restaurants, classic. The old fort from, the colonial days was still there. You could wander around in the fort, which was very cool. So, I like wandering around old classic stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And, last thing, what is the biggest piece of advice you have for someone who's interested in making a career in the commercial aviation industry?
Be patient. Be patient. It's a long road. There's a great big pot of gold at the end of the road, but it takes a while to get there.
Yes.
My 25-year-old son is in the process, and they're even if everything goes perfectly, it takes years. And you can, if you start, there are paths that can make it efficient. Like there's some flight schools that if you are able to go full time to school, if you got some way to pay for food and lodging, you can go full time and get all of your required licenses within 12 months. Well, that's awesome. But you don't have enough hours yet to get into the cockpit that you want to get into. So you got to spend the next year or two getting hours. And then you got to get hired by a regional carrier, for a number of reasons. And you'll spend a year or two at a regional. So, and that's for somebody who's got to go to school like is in college or has to support themselves with a job, that first year spreads out to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years to get your licenses. And then you still got to go get more time. You can do that as an instructor where you get time and somebody else pays for it. So that's a cool thing. Or there are other ways to do that. But then you got to go work for a regional for a while. And that's a year or two, before you get to where you want to be. And depending on when you start, if you start early enough, then you can be in the cockpit you want to be in by age 23. But if you don't start until your 30s and you got a family and kids, then this first part's going to take that much longer because you have other priorities. So that, and my career was a lot of ups and downs. Every 10 years, I took a 50% pay cut. So, that said, I'm still in real good shape now that I retired. I made my bones. I'm good.
Right.
I'm telling my son Cameron, he's starting at a very, very good time. And if his career stays good and he doesn't have those 10-year issues, kicks in the teeth, he's going to have a big pot of gold at the end. Mm-hmm. But to get to the starting line of the major airline, it's a road, it's a process, and it can be frustrating and it can be costly. But if you can find a way to meet the cost in both money and time and energy and intellect, if you can do that and not exhaust yourself before you step in the door at the major airline with that major airline, if that's your goal,
right?
Be an airline pilot. I think that's kind of the way you couch the question.
Yeah.
You step in the door. In my case, it was United. One of my best friends went into American. Several of my friends went to Delta. Others went to Southwest. You pick your airline or they pick you and you step in there and you cast your lot with them. It has cost you to get there, but it's worthy. So patience, man, patience. Keep walking one foot in front of the other. You go to Cocoa Head in Honolulu. Honolulu. It's a volcano, and they got a climb, a hike. Used to be a supply train that would supply the outpost at the top of the mountain. You can climb that thing. It's 1,100 railroad ties, almost straight up. A lot of people get to halfway and turn around because they're too tired, or they didn't bring the right shoes. They didn't bring enough water. The sun's a little bit too hot because they started a little bit too late in the day. Mm-hmm. And they got halfway there and they turned around because they're looking up at the top and they're only halfway there. And they can't get their head around getting all the way up there. But what I tell them, if I was standing right next to them, is I don't look up, look down. Mm. All you got to do is step up 8 inches onto that one railroad. You got to do, take a breath, step up. Wow. And don't even look at the top. You just keep doing one of those railroad ties at a time. Next thing you know, you've done 1,100 of them, and you're looking out over the Pacific Ocean at the whales jumping in the spring.
Very, very sound advice.
Patience.
Yes, sir.
Stay in the process.
Absolutely. Man. And there we have it, folks. And with that being said, sir, you are cleared to land.
Nice. That's always a good thing.
Yes, absolutely, man. Once again, Mark, thank you so much. A lot of lessons learned. I genuinely feel that anyone that sees this is going to have a lot to take away, a lot to unpack, from an aviation perspective, from an entrepreneurial perspective. Guys, please go read his book. Go to the website, read the blogs. I'll add this. We're going to certainly add this to the show notes so people will know exactly where to find you. But,
thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir. But, thank you. This was great. I really appreciate it. And, who knows? Maybe we can do this again in the future,
I'd love it. I've done that with some other podcasters.
Okay.
We'll do one. We have so much fun. We put one, months down the road, we do it again. Ricky, don't sell yourself short, man. You say you're just getting started, but you really do a nice job. It's a good setup. You come with good questions, and I have enjoyed it very much. It's been a great experience for me.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. And I'm humbled. That means a lot coming from you, sir. Thank you. So
pleasure.
But we'll hang back. We'll kind of do a little debrief, if you will, once we go off from here. But that's all I've got for you today for the pod. Thank you again, and look forward to this coming out.
You bet. Take care now.
Yes, sir. Thank you.